Welcome back to another screencast about Python. In this episode, I'll be going over a review of lists and arrays and their syntax. Syntax refers to the combinations of symbols that are valid language for, in this case, Python. So for example, where we want to have a comma or not, I like the Oxford comma, so I'd like a comma there in English. Let's look at, for our first example, a Python list. Suppose I have a list called animals, like we looked at in class the other day. This will be a review if you saw that. To make a list, this type of structure, I use parentheses. And my first list will be a list of animal names, so I'll put them in single quotes. This will make these variables strings. So that's basically you can think of it as a word. It's letters and numbers as symbols in order. So my first entry in this list is cat. My next is dog. These are separated by commas. Horse. How about cheetah? So I have 4 entries in this list. And now if I hit enter there to come to my next line, if I type animals, just the name of this list, I will get an echo or a repeat output of what is contained in that list. Now I can go to addresses in the list. So if I want to know how long this list is, I can type size of animals. And when I say of, I mean parentheses. But size is not defined. But len is for a list. And it tells me 4, which is what we expect. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 entries in this list. That's clear. That didn't clear my variables, it just cleared my console. Let's look at animals again. I'd like to look at the first entry in animals. If I want to refer to that in code, I can call it animals of 0, and here I'm using square braces. When I use these square braces, that's specifying an index or an address in the list. So that tells me where along the length of the list I'm asking for the value contained in the list. Notice I entered 0 and I got the first element. In Python, we begin counting with 0. So what would animals of 1 be? That's dog. It's the second element, so 1 gives you the second element. What if we wanted to know cheetah? Would that be animals of 4 or animals of 3? It's animals of 3 because we count 0, 1, 2, 3. But what if I wasn't sure of the length and I just wanted the last element? I can count backwards in Python from the end, and the negative first element is the last element. So what would the negative third element be? We had negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and that gives us dog. So that's some of how we can use lists, but lists can also contain numbers. Let's use a new command. It's called range. Range gives me a list of numbers up to stop. It was telling me that when I typed this parenthesis. Gave me some syntax hints. So if I said range 10, let's look at what that gives us. That gives us the numbers from 0 to 9 in order. So will this allow us to do math? Let's check. What if I had y equals range 3? Let's make something more manageable in size. 0, 1, 2. What'll happen if I take y plus y? What do you expect to happen? We don't always get what we expect. So here we see 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. So this plus operator in the case of lists gave us just a concatenation, 0, 1, 2, and then a second copy of it. But what if I wanted to add 0, 1, 2 and get 0, 2, 4? If I want to do math with a list of objects, I need a special kind of list called an array. So let's take a look at how we do that. arrays are not built in to Python itself. I need to import them from a module. And I can do that by importing from NumPy, numerical Python package, import array. And that imports this keyword array, which will allow me to say y equals, one way to do this would be a range, and that's the array version of the list range. But another way to do this would be to say y equals array of 1, 2, 3, like this. So I have parentheses and square braces, and now y is an array. So now if I say y plus y, I get 2, 4, 6, where y was 1, 2, 3. Notice something I did here. Y had been 0, 1, 2, but I wrote a new definition for it, and that just bound the name y to a new structure containing 1, 2, 3. So we can reuse a name, but it will redefine that name as being attached to a new quantity. So those are arrays and lists. We're going to typically, in this class, our physics class, we're going to say from pylab import star. Star means everything. Import all the things contained in this library, pylab, and this will import many tools for us that will allow us to write code without having necessarily to worry about where those tools came from, which, when we've been writing code for longer, we might want to know where the tools come from. But just to get started, we're going to import pylab, and this will give us that command I referred to, a range. So I could say z equals a range, and here I have more choices. I have start, stop, and step. So if I wanted numbers from 3 to 5 in steps of 0.1, you can imagine that's going to be 3, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, up to 5. Let's take a look at what it looks like. So something to be very mindful of is that using this command in this way, I get the numbers up to but not including the last number. That's related to the starting counting with 0 property of Python. We start at 3, but we end 1 short of 5, with spacing being 0.1. So that is the arange command. That covers the basics of syntax for lists and arrays, and the difference between them is I can have a list of any type of objects. With arrays, I typically want to use arrays with numbers because arrays have the ability to do math. What would happen if I looked at, let's remind ourselves what y is. It's the array 1, 2, 3. What would y times y be? That squares each element of y. Another way to square in Python is to use star star. So y star star 2 gives me the same result. If I looked at y star star 3, that gives me the cube of each element. So this star star operator is the way that we raise to a power in Python. The next thing we'd like to look at, do we still have animals? Yes, we do. Let's write a for loop. We have our two panels here. This is the console, and over here we have a Python document that we're editing. You can see the file name here is untitled2.py. In this script, let's say from pylab import star, so that we can use tools from pylab. Here I have a little analysis from pylab import star, unable to detect undefined names. Let's check whether that's any problem. I'll save this as example A. And if I hit my green arrow here, I can run. It says that I ran the file, but I have no output because I didn't ask it to do anything. I'm going to take my definition of animals, which I can recall by hitting the up arrow. Up arrow goes through my history of commands that I've typed in this session. I'm going to go back to the definition of animals here. Highlight that, Control C, paste it into my Python document over here, example a.py. And now I'm going to write a for loop. For loops are useful when I know that I want to do something for every element of a list whose length I know. So I can say for x in animals, colon, when I hit return or enter, notice that there's an automatic indentation here of 1 tab width. That's 4 characters with my settings. That's the default in this editor. Unexpected indent block because I haven't typed anything yet. I will say print, and we're using Python 3, which means we need parentheses on our print statement. Notice that it's colored purple. That tells us it's a built-in command. And print x. So this should go through these animals and print them one at a time, each on a new line. Let's try running this code. And here's the output over here in our console: cat, dog, horse, cheetah, as expected. Now what if we didn't want to print all the animals, but only the animals that start with C? To do that, we can use an if statement. We can say if x of 0 is C. So to test that, we use this operator, double equals, and we want to know if that first character is C. Let's look at how this addressing works. Animals of 0 is cat. Let's give it a new name. C equals animals of 0. So I can refer. C now tells me cat as well. Animals of 0 also still tells me cat. Both of those names are bound to the same data. So what is C of 0? Well, C is a string. It's the string cat, and the first element in that string, which is a list of characters, is C. So here we're just checking if the first element of x for each x is C, then print C. This if statement also is a structure that requires a colon. When I hit enter, notice there's a new indent. So I indent 4, then I indent another 4. This print statement needs to be at that level of indentation. When we come back out to this level, we're done with the if statement. When we come back further, we're done with the for statement. So I can unindent here and say print done, and then I'll know that my code has completed. So what do we expect? We expect to go through this list for all the elements x in animals. This x is called a dummy variable, and its only reason for existing is to count through the elements in this list as we use our for loop. We're going to print the animals, but only if they start with C. So I expect to see cat, then on the next line cheetah, then on the next line I'm done with my for loop, done. Let's try it. Cat, cheetah, done. So in this video we have seen how to use lists, which are what they sound like. It's a list of elements, and those elements can be strings, numbers, letters. They can be other structures. You can have a list of lists, which is actually what we have here. Our list animals is a list of strings, and each string is a list of characters. We have a for loop, which lets us do something as many times as there are elements in a list. We have the if statement that allows us to do something only if a condition is met. And we see that unlike the single equals sign, which assigns value, the double equals sign tests equality. So if these two things are equal, this if statement is true and the stuff after the colon is executed, but only if we get a true result. That is a basic review of lists, arrays, and for and if statements in Python.